races inside the 20 and a touchdown for Terry McLaurin.
Okay, here's RG3. He's going to run for the first down. That's still on his feet. RG3 is going to outrace everybody.
Welcome back to the Burgundy and Gold Review, everyone. Washington is coming off a long break after that thrilling Thursday night game against the New York Giants. We're heading into week 3 of the NFL season here. It's moving quick, and Washington has a tough trip up to Buffalo this week in a tough place to play and against a tough opponent. So it's nice that they got a little bit of extended break after especially the kind of game that they just played, but not a favorable matchup here early on. But before we get into all of our content for the pod today, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Winview Games. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Winview Games, the nation's sports prediction leader and home for pregame and live Washington football prop contests. I know all of you live and breathe Washington football like me, so if you want to put that knowledge to the test, download Winview right now at winview.tv/Burgundy Gold. Again, that's winview.tv/Burgundy Gold. Play against other people in free or real money contests. You can also find the link in our Instagram bio at the BNG Review. Play your first $20 risk-free with Washington football contests every day until the end of the season. I know this app is for you all, and we've got a couple of prop bets that we'd like to discuss that we feel pretty good about. Sam, I mean, just looking at some of the things they offer here, at least what's the first one that just stands out to you that you're going to hammer?
I mean, so far I'm loving this app, and there's a couple that stand out to me. The first one would be Terry McLaurin records 85 or more receiving yards in the game. I think that's something that you got to jump on. What do you think, Jess?
I agree with that. We saw that Terry was Heineke's far and away favorite target in last week's contest and even in the latter half of the Chargers game. So I think that one's an easy one to be confident in. I'm not sure if this is bold or not, but I like having Heineke more yards than Allen on that bet there. I feel like Washington, I don't know how successful the run game will be. I mean, Buffalo's got a good D-line, and I feel like, we haven't been able to rely on our defense thus far. So game's looking like it's going to be a bit of a shootout, or at least having to throw the ball a lot. So I don't think it's out of the realm possibility that total yards, rushing and passing, with Heineke throwing a majority of the first downs and just in the offense last week, I think he can get more yards than Josh Allen this week.
I agree with that, and there's always a chance that they might be playing from behind, but let's hope not. But yeah, I definitely have a feeling that Heineke could. And the last one that kind of stood out to me, and I could be totally wrong, it could go complete opposite direction, but I'm going to take Stephon Diggs recording 7 or more receptions in the game. Obviously, very prolific receiver, probably top 5 in the NFL. Hopefully William Jackson shadowing him the entire game and he doesn't get 7, but I could easily see him racking up 7, and he's usually getting the lion's share of the targets in that Bills offense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did believe he led the NFL in receptions last year. Coming off a career best year, the man in that Buffalo offense, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, he is that dude. They're going to at least target him a lot. Whether or not he hits that number, I'm not as sure on as Sam, but I might lean towards the under because I think Washington's going to at least try to force maybe Gabriel Davis or Emmanuel Sanders or Cole Beasley or Dawson Knox or one of those guys to beat him in the passing game opposed to Diggs. I mean, in the New York and the LA game, we saw Keenan Allen and Kenny Galladay both were not huge factors in that game. So I might be more inclined to take the under, but those are 3 prop bets brought to you by Winview Games that we really like before this Buffalo matchup. So before Sam and I also get into our injury report, key matchups, key observations, and finally our game predictions for this week, we were fortunate enough for at least Sam to have the opportunity to talk to JP Finlay, NBC Sports Washington beat reporter for the Washington football team for the past several years. Very large, just notable figure in the media world in the DMV area. Very knowledgeable guy, great reporter. We were very, very fortunate to have him on. But Sam had the great opportunity to talk with JP a bit about his thoughts on how the New York game went, got to look at the Buffalo game a little bit. So we're going to let you guys take a listen to that short segment before we dive into our stuff next.
Want to give a big warm welcome to our new friend JP Finlay from NBC Sports Washington and the all-famous Washington Football Talk podcast. JP, thank you so much for giving us your time. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, fellas. How are you?
Doing well,
Thank you,
doing
man.
well. Really excited for Buffalo. We got a pretty exciting win last week, albeit it was sloppy. How you feeling going into this week?
They got a heck of a contest on their hands, man. They really do. I think I wasn't really buying the exceptional amount of Buffalo hype that kind of started coming out there towards just before the season started. On the radio show, we all had to make our predictions, and I wanted to change my prediction to the Dolphins winning the AFC East. But then Tua's hurt, so who the hell knows? I think Buffalo's good for sure, but offensively they haven't really gotten it going. Their defense has looked really good. If I told you a month ago that Washington's got to count on Taylor Heineke to outscore Josh Allen as their way of winning in Buffalo, you would have said I was on acid. So they got real defensive questions, man, and the defense needs to show up. I think Heineke will move the ball pretty well.
Well, it seems so far over the little bit of sample size that we've gotten from Heineke that he hasn't really had a problem moving the ball, and he hasn't had any fear in moving the ball, which is something we haven't had in Washington for a while. And going back into your point of the Bills not having the offensive production as they did from last year, what's some key matchups from their offense to our defense that you could see being a huge factor on Sunday?
So I think they're really going to try to run the ball. I think Devin Singletary and Zach Moss present a 1-2 punch, and Washington hasn't done a great job of defending the run. Now, last week's run total was a little bit inflated from Daniel Jones' running ability, but I think Josh Allen can scoot too. Obviously, Steph Diggs is a tremendous concern, right? But I'm a little more concerned, perhaps. Like, if Steph Diggs beats you, you tip your cap because he's one of the best receivers in football.
Right.
I'm curious about Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. I think those guys could be in line for some big games because ideally they can put William Jackson on Diggs and you put Kendall Fuller in the slot on either of those guys, whoever Beasley or Sanders is in the slot, and then I worry about who's on the outside going against Benjamin St-Juste. He's had a kind of tough start to the season. You really need that pass rush to get home. Matt Ioannidis is questionable with a knee injury, and listening to Ron talk about Ioannidis, he's like, yeah, we're going to be prudent, we're going to be smart, we're going to be safe. That doesn't sound, I don't want to draw conclusions. He didn't say anything definitively, but that doesn't sound particularly exciting about Ioannidis' ability to play this weekend. So I think it's the pass game, and I think it's guys that aren't Steph Diggs that'll make or break this game. If Diggs goes for 100 and a touchdown, but they slow down the rest of the offense, I think Washington will be in position. But if Diggs goes for 80 and the other two combined, Beasley and Sanders combined for $120, $150, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that, JP. And I believe there was a quote earlier this week from Chase Young. I believe he said that the rest of the defense goes by the way of the defensive line. And when you leave the secondary out to dry, not to say out to dry, but just give the receivers too much time back there, I think they could carve them up just like you're saying. And I think they just have guys like Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley who are route running artists that might just have a little bit of a step up on guys in our secondary. Guys like St-Juste, and God forbid we got to get some of our linebackers involved there as well. Going back to last week a little bit, what's something of an observation that you might have seen that you would expect to improve going from week 2 to week 3?
Ron has been really pretty openly critical publicly about his disappointment with the defensive efforts and the defensive discipline. So I can only imagine what he's saying privately and what Jack Del Rio's saying privately. And I think that stuff could, if they play more discipline and you don't have guys losing their run fits and you have linebackers keeping their eyes on the action and not on all the disguises, I think the defense has a better performance in them. I don't know how good it is. I worry about big plays. I worry about Landon Collins. I worry about the linebackers particularly. There's been a lot of middle of the field's been open a ton.
Now we know Buffalo is probably, quote unquote, if we're going back to 2020 standards, the first true elite matchup that Washington's going to face this year. If they're going to have any chance of coming out in victory, what do you think that they have to do in order to contain this team and attack them at the same time?
I think they have to be aggressive. I mean, I know Scott Turner got a ton of heat for calling that pass play where Heineke threw the pick just before the 2-minute warning against the Giants. And I understand the conventional wisdom of just run the ball, run out the clock. But I like being aggressive there and trying to win the game. And I think they got to come out firing against the Bills. I really do. I think that's how you're going to win this thing. And I think you need Taylor Heineke to have a big game. I think you're going to have to score because I don't see the Washington defense shutting down the Bills' offense. I think you're going to have to score 30 points. And I think that means big games from McLaurin. I think that means Logan Thomas finds the end zone. We've all seen De'Ami Brown's big play potential in college, and we saw it some in training camp. And I think you need a big play. You're going to need some big plays, maybe from unexpected spots. And whether that's special teams, I think DeAndre Carter's been good for them in the return game. Maybe you get a big play there, or defense, or wherever. But I think you're going to have to score 30 points to win this thing in Buffalo. And, you also might need your head coach to play to win. I haven't disagreed with it, but there's been some spots in the first 2 games where he's punted, where he could have gone for it. I think you're going to have to get aggressive here.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've touched on that in a couple episodes prior. The punting, I believe, from the 37-yard line in week 1. We always want to see the coach be aggressive. We've had a couple lay-down guys in the past. But yeah, 30 points, I believe they'll have to do that too. And unfortunately, this week it's not going to be the Giants they're going up against. It's going to be the number 2 overall defense of the Buffalo Bills. So they can get down early. And I think they're going to have guys, like you said, I think they're going to have guys like McLaurin strapped up, and they're going to have to find help from somewhere that you're not normally expected, whether that be Cam Sims, De'Ami Brown, Adam Humphries, so be it.
Yeah.
So.
I think Tre'Davious White is obviously a baller. I like Micah Hyde a lot. We did this on the radio show where we kind of went through the best 10 players when Washington's on offense on the field. And I think if you count up the best 10 players of those 22, of Washington's starting offense and the Bills' starting defense, I think 6 or 7 of those players are on the Bills' side. And that's concerning, So you're going to need some guys you're not expecting to make plays. I think that Bills' secondary is pretty good. That as much as we talk about the Washington pass rush, Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau's giving them good snaps as a rookie. They're going to have to score, but they're going to have a challenge.
I think if they go into this game the same way that they went into it in Tampa last year with no expectation, just go out there and play with the heart that Taylor Heineke plays with, like play for each other, just go out there to win the game. I think that'll give them the best chance to win. And if they do win, who do you see being the player of the game?
Heineke.
Heineke?
If they're going to win, now listen, I would love to be wrong and they win a 10-9 defensive slugfest and Chase Young has 3 sacks and Kendall Fuller runs back a pick, right? Like that would be great for this team and what they're trying to accomplish. But the game script I see in my head is they're going to have to score 30, and to do it, Heineke's going to have to probably throw for 285 with 2 touchdowns and maybe another one on the ground. Or you need Antonio Gibson to go for $120 with a touchdown. So,
could you imagine the conversations next week if that did happen?
Banana land, dude.
And what the future would be for Taylor Heineke? I mean, he's already drawing comparisons. Like, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But hey, we can all hope, right?
Sure. I mean, I think there's the most I feel the most comfortable for Washington at quarterback with Taylor Heineke to have since at least Kirk Cousins, which is crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's the quarterback situation here, and everybody knows, like, so goes Washington football, as goes our quarterback situation. It's something that we're always talking about, and something you can never sit in a seat and get comfortable about. And it's going to take Heineke a lot of proving, I think, even to the coaching staff, to everyone, to the whole world. But he's definitely on the right track, and it's been a fun story to follow for sure.
For sure.
Now, in the event, well, not in the event, rather, but in all honesty, if you can give a score prediction, what you actually think is going to happen in this game, JP, can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so this is what gets tough is by the end of the week, I end up making a bunch of different predictions. So forgive me if I'm saying something that I haven't said exactly elsewhere. But I think they score in this one, and I think Washington loses. I kind of think a heartbreaker. I think they're going to play pretty well. I think Ron is going to have his boys ready to go coming off a long break, going against his former D coordinator, a guy that he worked with in Philly. I could see this like a 27-24 final where the Bills win, something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. When we did our score predictions for the season, I had this being our first loss, but unfortunately, it might be our second, but we're hoping for it to be our second win. But JP, thank you so much for joining us today, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for spending time out of your super busy day. And everybody, if you don't already follow JP, make sure you follow him and his podcast. Thank you so much again, man.
No problem, man. I enjoyed it, and for once, you can buy me you can owe me a beer when I get to your spot in Federal Hill.
Hey, man, we're always here. I'll buy you too. How about that?
Where's the bar?
McGurk's. It's on the corner of Cross.
Oh, I've been to McGurk's.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. I work at McGurk's and Delia Foley's actually too up the street. It's like a Irish pub. But
How much heat do you catch being a Washington fan in Baltimore?
Hey, man, every a lot, a lot. I stand my ground though. I stand my ground. I think you might know another one of my buddies too. Chris Canty.
The guy that played for the Giants?
No, he's a bartender up here too. He works at Wiley Gunter's. It's like the Redskins bar up here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have to come up sometime. I'll buy you a beer or two.
I love Baltimore and Federal Hill. It broke my heart. Did Cross Street Market close?
So they closed it for renovations and stuff, but it's all open now. They have like a new rooftop bar right next door too. It's pretty sweet.
But can I still get a bucket of beer and steamed shrimp and all that?
So no, they at the new place, yes. So where the rooftop bar is where the place is that you were talking about. That place closed. But they put a new place in. It's pretty sweet. It's not as good as the old place, but like the rooftop bar is dope.
All right, I will check it out. Well, thank you, dude. Hit me up anytime.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, JP. Nice talking to you.
Likewise. Take care.
Take care, man.
Diving right into some of the pregame stuff we want to hit on. Washington has been fortunate thus far that the injury report has not been too stacked for them. The only guy on the injury report this week has been Matt Ioannidis, knee injury that he got hurt in the New York game. He's questionable to play. I mean, JP mentioned we're not sure if I'd assume he plays. Again, neither of us want to speculate, but he's probably not getting the same amount of snaps he got weeks 1 and 2. I think we're going to see a bit more of Tim Settle this week, or they're going to keep John Allen and Deron Payne on the field more. But Matt Ioannidis questionable with a knee injury. Only real thing on the Washington side. I mean, Gibson had a shoulder injury, but he was taken off the injury report by Thursday, so no real concerns there.
Washington has been pretty fortunate, knock on wood, thus far with injury. The Matt Ioannidis one is concerning. I saw him walk out right in front of me last week. He didn't look to be doing too well. Walk back onto the field looked to be a little bit better, but you never know, and knee injuries can be day-to-day. So I definitely think he'll be on a snap count, but Washington definitely goes into week 3 holding an advantage in the injury department.
On the Bills side of things, bit more players than Washington has. They actually have 5 guys questionable to play. Cornerback Levi Wallace and cornerback Dane Jackson, safety Micah Hyde, defensive tackle Star Latulele, and wide receiver Gabe Davis. So a couple notable guys in their defense there. I mean, between Hyde, Latulele, and at least one of those corners as their nickel guy. I'm not 100% sure which one, but I'd expect most of them to play. I haven't heard much about any of them not playing. I don't think any of them really held out of practice this week, but secondary is looking a little banged up on Buffalo, we could be throwing the ball a bit more. I mean, that's an expectation I have.
Yeah, I definitely think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more, especially after Heineke proved that he can do work from the pocket after last week and how difficult the Buffalo run defense is proven to be thus far this year.
Well, Heineke proved to us that Terry McLaurin is easily his favorite target on the offense. I mean, we thought he could spread the ball a bit more, but Terry was that guy in large part Thursday night, and all eyes are going to be on him again to put up a big one. He's going against one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL, and Tre'Davious White for the Bills. Whether or not White will be shadowing Terry all game, or they'll be moving Terry around for the best matchup, we'll just have to see how that plays out. But I think if the offense wants to stay productive and wants to keep moving, if the ball's not getting to Terry and Terry's not having a good one, I'm not too sure who else is going to step up, at least thus far. So I think McLaurin versus White is a big matchup to keep an eye on. So flipping that over, to the defensive side of the ball, same thing applies for William Jackson versus cornerback William Jackson versus wide receiver Stephon Diggs. We talked about Diggs a little bit in our prop bet segment, but he is a productive receiver. He is a talented receiver, one of the best in the league. Jackson had some nice plays last week, but he also did not have some great ones. So Buffalo's offense, Diggs is that guy. And if the team, if specifically Jackson, can slow him down, then that's in the defense's best interest. So how will William Jackson respond to a somewhat inconsistent game that we saw? Really good week one, kind of iffy week two. So what are we going to see from him against one of the league's best receiver in Diggs? Because this is going to be his toughest test so far.
It's going to be a toughest test for a lot of the team, but that is one of the main matchups there for sure. Stephon Diggs, as we have said through previous parts of this episode, he is a top 5 elite wide receiver. So, yes, that will be interesting to see how he's schemed for and how William Jackson will handle it.
That brings us over to our key observations of the game, what we'll be looking out for. And I think we have to stay on the defensive side of the ball here. Last year, Washington had the number 2 pass defense, given they might not have been the second best secondary, but the pass defense did what they had to last year and were able to play off a really good pass rush. And the secondary is more talented this year, but that group has yet to gel. Landon Collins is back. William Jackson got put into the fold. Kendall Fuller's playing a bit of a different position. Jimmy Moreland's gone. St. Juice is in there. Bobby McCain's there. So although the secondary is more talented, they don't have as much communication, chemistry, and cohesion, which is still extremely important and is almost as important as talent in the secondary. So I think that we a bit better. We won't see as many coverage breakdowns as we saw against the New York Giants, but I need to see how the secondary keeps gelling because this is on paper, a lot better group than it was last year. But for an on-the-field product, they have regressed significantly. I do think it's due to a lack of playing together so far, and they will get better as the year goes along. But Buffalo's a test. They are a phenomenal passing offense, very, very talented group of receivers, and a phenomenal quarterback. And you can't be letting guys run wide open like they did with Darius Slayton.
Yeah, this can get really ugly really quick. Daniel Jones carved us up, and Josh Allen's about 10 times the quarterback. So, got to see more from that pass defense.
And even the pass rush. The pass rush looked really good for a few drives against New York. John Allen went crazy. Montez Sweat and Chase Young were swarming. But when the second half came around, the Giants had, I don't want to say negated, but they really were able to scheme against the Washington pass rush. I don't know if it was a lack of tiredness or conditioning. They were just rotating too much, or if the Giants just switched their game plan and Washington wasn't able to adapt enough. But, we saw the pass rush get nasty, and we saw them disappear last week. And are we going to see them be more consistent on one end or the other? Is it going to be no pass rush for a whole game, or is it going to be full-on pass rush for the full game? So that's something I'm really looking at. Need the pass rush. When you have 4 first-round picks invested in your defensive line, it better be damn good. We've seen these guys play great football before, and they need to do it here because secondary that's working on chemistry issues is not going to survive. The D-line's not able to help them out.
It's been a frustrating go with the defense, as we've talked about the last 2 weeks. So not much more I can say that you haven't said already and that we haven't already harped on before. So we want to see these picks perform. We want to see everybody gel and come together. And this is going to be a huge test this week in Buffalo. And let's just hope that they don't get too behind themselves.
This will also be the first game that we see Taylor Heineke on the road in a meaningful game, should I say. We saw him at home versus the Bucs. We saw him at home versus the Chargers and at home versus the Giants. And it's the first time he's going on the road. Talked about at the beginning of the pod, Buffalo is a tough place to play. and it's not only a tough atmosphere, but it is a very good football team. So another challenge for Heineke right off the bat. I mean, he's gotten a bit more time to prep for this game than he did the Giants game, but if Washington wants to have a chance to compete, Heineke needs to be effective, efficient. He was that Thursday night, but it needs to continue. So how does Taylor Heineke bode on the road, and how does he bode in a more of a hostile, challenging environment than he's faced thus far? I'll be keeping an eye on that.
Every test so far that we've given Heineke, I don't want to say like he's passed with flying colors, but he's given it the best damn effort of anyone I've seen on this team in so long. And I don't know what it is. I just have a feeling that like he's going to show up, and it don't matter if he's on the road. It doesn't matter if it's rain. Doesn't matter if it's cold. Heineke's going to come to play, and I think we're going to see a good performance.
I'm confident in that too. I mean, just whenever Heineke's in the offense, I mean, JP talked about it. You just mentioned it there. I agree with both those sentiments. You have more faith in the offense moving the football. Like when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in for a few drives, or last year when it was Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins, the offense was stale, stagnant, inefficient, and just bad. And when Heineke's been in the game, this isn't necessarily saying he's the guy or whatever, but Scott Turner's a lot more comfortable with him as his quarterback, and we see a lot more fun plays. We see a lot more moving the ball. We see a lot more efficient drives, and I think we'll get a good game from Heineke, and that kind of is a good transition into our game predictions. I've kind of alluded at mine, feeling like it's going to be a bit of a shootout. JP had the same thoughts there. I have a similar score prediction, similar expectation for what happens. He kind of took the words right out of my mouth, but I've got Washington losing this one 27-21. I do think it'll be a bit of a heartbreaker. My expectation is we keep it close all the way throughout, but Buffalo gets a last minute or last couple minutes of the game touchdown, and Washington doesn't have enough time or is unable to score back. So I have the Bills winning this one 27-21 in a tough loss, but a hard-fought loss by the Washington football team.
I have Washington losing this one as well. I have it being close as well too, and I think it's going to be 27-20. So only 1 point difference from you.
You and JP all picked 27 for the Bills. We'll have to see if that's the if that comes to fruition. But
isn't that Tre'Davious White's number? I think, and not that that matters, but
anyway, he might have changed. I've lost track of these player name changes.
I can't stand it. It drives me nuts.
Our player of the game predictions for this. We talked about Heineke a lot. I mean, JP said that Heineke was going to have a really big game. I think that's true, but I think we see a bit more of Antonio Gibson again. I think it was that shoulder injury that happened in the Chargers game that kind of limited him a bit in the Giants game. He ran the ball well. We didn't see him as much a receiver, but I think they kind of go back to that. J.D. McKissick's workload gets dialed back a little bit. I think we get a nice game from Gibson with about 120 total yards and 2 touchdowns for Washington.
I'm going to get a little crazy here and kind of go with the dark horse candidate. As we were discussing with JP, you're going to need somebody to stand up that you normally wouldn't have. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Cam Sims scores 2 touchdowns this week and becomes player of the game. 2 touchdowns in pivotal moments that keeps this game relevant. So I'm going to get a little crazy and pick Cam Sims this week.
That is a hot take considering the amount of snaps he's played the last few weeks, but I do feel like that is a Cam Sims moment. He kind of just, when you forget about him or when you're least thinking about him, he pops up, makes a big play, and puts his name back on the map.
Yeah, I mean, Heineke's proven that he likes to go to him in the past in pivotal moments, so who's to say that couldn't happen again this week? But anyway, that's all we have for you this week, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to come back after the Buffalo game as we recap all 4 quarters of the Washington's Week 3 matchup versus the Bills. I'm Sam of WSH Football 365, and that's Jess of HTTR.Nation. Both can be found on Instagram. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on all places where podcasts can be found. Thank you so much for listening, and go football team.
Sean Taylor, he's off to the races inside.